Now, we already briefly touched upon DAOs, decentralized autonomous organizations. And for our next conversation, I'm going to invite the 3 thought leaders from the decentralized autonomous organization hub in the Netherlands. Peter Nobels, Maarten Smakman, and Olivier Rikken. Gentlemen, please join me here on the stage. Right. I think all your microphones work. Yeah, they'll work.
Yeah, check.
Wonderful. Great to have you with us today. Now, you started the DAO Hub together. I think you were working on this on the DAO Hub, but it's not your full-time work, right? You're not full-time working on the DAO Hub. That's right. You're also having your own companies next to the DAO Hub, Peter.
Yeah. Shall I start?
Please, short introduction.
I took the first initiative to establish the Dutch the DAO Hub. Because we think, if you see the hypes, the DeFi, the NFT.
Can you remove your badge? Sorry. Oh, yeah.
Okay.
You as well, Peter. You as well.
Yeah. Okay. Well.
Looks nicer on the photos.
Yeah, looks better. Huh?
Yeah.
It doesn't change my face, like the metaverse, but. We think that the third hype in the blockchain world are the DAOs, decentralized autonomous organizations. I probably don't have to explain it, but it's such a disciplinary field. You have the legal issues, liability, as we talked about it. It has economical aspects, how I'm going to raise or establish a micro economy for my community. It has political science aspects, like how to decide. It has also organizational aspects. So I thought, well, who are the leaders in the field in the Netherlands, which I can invite to think with me together and to get on a journey to discover what's happening, what's needed. So that was the founding of the DAO.
And what kind of activities are you recognizing? What kind of things are you doing within this hub?
Yeah, actually 3 things. One is knowledge sharing. We come together each month and we share ideas. One of our members takes the stage, and he looks at the DAO based from his background. Can be, as I said, legal or economical. The second thing is events. We have our own event tomorrow, so you're invited at the University of Applied Science in Utrecht.
There are still tickets available. People can go to the website, dutchblockchainweek.com, get a ticket.
Get a ticket. Cool. Nice speaker lineup program. Maarten did it for us. And the third thing is we want to become more and more involved in experiments. So those are the 3 things. Experiments,
and then you found Maarten, who already started his first DAO in 2018. You're also doing all kinds of cool things with beer DAOs. Can you maybe shortly tell us about your DAO experience?
Of course. Maarten Smakman. I've been navigating the blockchain space since 2017, and in 2018 with a group of Amsterdam blockchain enthusiasts, we started off the Blockdam DAO, which is a group of people who gathered as a community, pulled some money together, and then we invited speakers to talk about blockchain related subjects. So that was 2018 when we were using the Aragon platform, voting on the mainnet of Ethereum, which sounds pretty crazy right now that we did it like that at that time. Yeah, after that, I've kept on navigating, exploring the blockchain space, doing a lot of stuff with NFTs, self-sovereign identity, and also with DAOs. And especially with the NFTs, I got in touch with a lot of artists. And I think also with a glimpse to the former subject, this is where I think we need to put our imagination to work in the coming bear market, because we have been applying a lot of old concepts to the new world. And I think also in the DAO space, there's a great opportunity to really start working borderless, permissionless, frictionless. And that's what I'm trying to explore for the coming years also in all the projects I do. Amongst others, one is a beer DAO, in which we are trying to establish decentralized beer brands.
Now, and that's touching upon the discussion maybe that we just had. Is this not just a solution looking for a problem? Why do you need a DAO for making beer?
Yeah, that is a great question. No, that is a good, like we're just looking for the endless possibilities that the internet offer. And things can be done more frictionless. Things can be done more centralized. And especially by bringing it to the physical world, it's an interesting experiment to see what stands in the whole concept of a DAO and what is BS, to say so, what is not necessary. Yeah, and I think for us it's about an experiment. So we don't know, and I don't have a concrete answer. We're gonna find out what part of the project, so to say, is really going to be of added value, and what part of the project is just, okay, let's do it the old way. And that's our conclusion then.
Actually, it's a very valid question.
Great bridge also to you, introducing you, Olivier, because when I discussed DAOs with you, and that's the great thing, what I always like from your research, from your articles, you are not just always, in favor, always, like proclaiming that Web3 blockchain DAOs are the solution for everything. But you always place the critical note as well. You have been performing research now for years around DAOs, right? Is it true?
Yeah, absolutely. Approximately 3.5 years ago. So I start some scientific research on DAOs. The amount of data available at that point in time was very little because there were only a few DAOs around at that point in time. But now I'm 3.5 years approximately down the road for my PhD on the governance of DAOs at the Delft University of Technology. Where I've been analyzing DAOs in depth, looking at how much activity is there, how much token holders are there, what are the goals or the business objectives for DAOs, and what is working, what isn't working, based on the numbers. Fancy ideas, but really diving into it, which DAOs do actually survive or not.
You've published already a few papers, I think 3 of them. They can be found on the web.
Yeah, 4 now, and number 5 is under review for the next journal.
When do you sleep? Holy moly, that's a lot of work. But can you share some first insights? Because you just briefly mentioned the size of the DAOs, the activity, that kind of stuff. Are they, because we also saw, for example, with Metaverse, that some Metaverses only have 300 active members. Yeah. When it comes to DAOs, are they just as successful as described on the blog post, etc.? Or
you really want to know the truth, right?
I want,
yeah, absolutely. First of all, it's said 2022 is said to be the year of the DAO, where we do see an explosion in the projects that call themselves a DAO. Let me put it like that. So approximately out there are 15,000 projects that call themselves a DAO at the moment, of which I think, just going back to what a DAO is, and actually that's one of the things we've been talking about. What is a DAO to start with?
What is a DAO?
Well, it's a very good question. I wrote a paper on that as well.
It's a full paper.
Yeah.
Can you put it in 2 sentences?
Yeah. Well, basically, if you bring it down to a scientific term, it's a system where you have a joint or shared ownership with a shared notary and treasury function, where all the decisions and actions and the execution of the decisions are automatically executed and archived in a decentralized way. That is a very high over scientific description. But what we see in practice out of these, say, 15,000 give or take DAOs, the vast majority are not DAOs at all to start with, because they're either not decentralized or they're not autonomous. For example, there are close to 8,000 to 10,000 DAOs out there that are either supported by Snapshot or Tally or Boardroom or whatever.
What are these?
These are all platforms that help you on the notary function, basically on voting and on decisions in a DAO. The problem with these platforms is once a voting is done, the execution of the vote is not autonomous, because in the background still people have to push a button somewhere, hopefully in a multi-sig situation, in a lot of cases, just a single person pushing a button. And that is not autonomous at all. So we make a decision and actually we can say, well, decision went A and B. And that's something we saw in practice actually a couple of times already. So this is what we see in a lot of cases. And actually, when I come down to the data that I analyze for the what I call the long-term of the DAOs, basically out of this set of potentially 15,000 DAOs, only a few hundred were suitable for analysis at this point in time.
And are they as active as we think they are?
Some are extremely active.
Can you give an example?
Well, there are DAOs like DAOs like Uniswap or ENS DAO. These are really active DAOs with a lot of users, a lot of voting by token holders, etc. But just taking a look at the average amount of token holders in a DAO at the moment, it depends on the cross section that you do, but it drops below 10 token holders. And in a lot of cases, there is basically a dictatorship, meaning that there's one token holder who can make all the decisions.
Yeah. Speaking of a dictatorship, Maarten just briefly mentioned, like maybe in 100 years we live in a DAO. There's no government anymore, but everything will be, around this big DAO that is controlling us. And that's interesting thing also that it are not just new organizations that are being built by DAOs, but I think, Peter, you're also working now with a political party that wants to implement a DAO. How does it work?
Yeah, how does it work? To name the party, it's Volt. And one of the things they thrive for, they call it grassroots initiatives. Well, that's a common term, where communities are more self-empowered and govern themselves. And we are having talks with them to support those communities with software. Where can they raise their own DAO, where can they do proposals, where they can vote, and also manage their treasury. As Olivier said, can you make a proposal with automatic execution? When we have two signatures, multi-sig, then it will be executed. It will be tokens who are transferred and not fiat money. But they are very interested. They say, well, instead of some political parties say we want involvement of citizens and we're going to do a referendum, they say, well, no, we don't pull it to The Hague. We push it to the grassroots, and thereby. Less need to govern and to make politics in The Hague, in the Chamber of Representatives. So we are discussing now, having talks. Can we do experiments in some environments? Perhaps we are talking with an energy cooperation where some people can raise money, put it in a treasury, buy a windmill or buy a solar park. And decide where to build it, and also owning and distributing the income, so the value generated to turn back to the participants. And that's not a feeling, when you from The Hague, when you say, well, there's going to be a windmill in your backyard, and not my backyard. Instead of starting the initiative yourself, and every rotation of the windmill is ding, ding, and then it's creating a whole other kind of dynamics and involvement.
It's good to hear from your side that there's actually the political parties now thinking about implementing a DAO. Yes. Because I think the unclarity from the regulators is killing a lot of DAO initiatives, right? I think it's, especially in the Netherlands, it's quite tough to know like what is legal, what is not, and what can be implemented or not. Or I see Olivier nodding.
Yeah, you take over later. Yeah. But when you start the initiative and you involve politics, you can do the experiment together, and you make also a law and regulation along the way, perhaps.
Yeah, but when it comes to projects here in the Netherlands, organizations or enthusiasts that want to start a DAO, do they really face big hurdles now in the current regulatory landscape?
Well, the problem is here, we are envisioning this discussion as of DAOs are one thing. And I just heard this in the metaphor discussion as well, but DAOs are not one thing. So from a regulatory perspective, it all depends on the setup of the governance structure, etc., of the DAO, what the legal structure will be afterwards. I can set a DAO being a membership-based DAO which looks one-on-one on a Dutch vereniging, or I can set up a DAO that looks 100% like a BV. So the legal discussion, sometimes we make it bigger than it actually is, say we need to invent whole new legal structures, while in most of the cases we can fit legal structures already. And maybe there are some cases where we might need to come up with new legal structures, but so far I haven't seen that much of that.
Yeah. Speaking of bridges, I see a really cool question from the audience. How do you bridge the decisions DAOs make with the real life decisions and consequences?
Well, with regards to the consequence, I can say one thing. If you didn't have a legal wrapper so far, right now the first court cases are starting already.
In the Netherlands?
Yeah, no, in the US in this case, with regards to a DAO called UkiDAO, where all the token holders are going to be held liable for the decision of the DAO because they didn't make a legal decision on the DAO in the first place. So this is something you really have to bear in mind in this discussion. So it's the UkiDAO against the CFTC in this case. So let's see where it goes from there. But with regards to the question, how does this go to the real world? Well, basically what you do is you set up a proposal, and then people in the real world are starting to vote on this proposal. This is how we connect it to the real world. And hopefully that leads to an automated execution of the outcome of the decision. And this is something that should reflect the real world as well. Yeah.
May I add something?
Please.
Which is also an interesting issue is how to get accepted by regulatory or classic banks, the fiat banks. But yesterday I had a workshop at the Rabobank, and they asked us the question, how can I support DAOs? So it's not settled yet, but they are interested in what we are doing and how they can connect to what DAOs are doing. So again, it is not settled yet, but we are researching together how to solve this issue.
You told them that you're using cryptocurrencies?
Yes, I did.
The Rabobank?
Yeah.
They didn't ban you already or removed your bank account?
It's an innovative department, so I don't know if it's going to reach the top, but
it's also here cool to hear that banks are interested in DAOs. But Maarten, do you already see corporates, Dutch corporates, that are also busy with starting a DAO or experimenting with it?
Well, actually, I think it's quite impossible for them to fully grasp what DAO is, because in themselves, by definition, they are not. So the same goes for corporates that are starting NFT projects. They are a centralized entity that is implementing some kind of decentralized technology. And I think it really needs a complete reset in thinking on entities. And also, for example, not calling it an organization. For me, it's way more an organism, because an organization is a top-down structure organizing stuff the old way. And DAOs are although they're still organization in the definition, for me that should be organism, because it should be like a flock of birds, a swarm that resonates around a certain subject. And I think for that reason, corporates won't be able to implement a DAO. I think DAOs will become or will have the function that corporates have now. So they will solve solve problems like corporates do, but they do it in another way, way more collectively owned and executed.
Why do DAOs, according to you, gain popularity? Why are they now becoming so popular? Is it just we sitting in this Web3 bubble and think they are really popular, or why do you think they are becoming popular?
For me, this is the same answer. Like in the old world, with the old hierarchical institutions, you only have to read the paper, whether it be politics, whether it be corporates. A lot of the functioning of those systems, well, a lot of people say it's broken. I think it's just the end stage of a certain way of organizing. And as humanity, we found new ways to organize and coordinate resources. And this is that way. Still, having said that, it's way in its infancy. There's a lot of experiments to be done. There's a lot of insights to be gained. But for me, like it's about adopting the future in the sense that, is it going to be digital? Yes. Is it going to be global? Yes. Is the personal sovereignty going to be more important? Yes. So then we're going to organize ourselves in a different way. And DAOs, whether the definition is organization or organism or decentralized or distributed or autonomous or frictionless, whatever, the definition we have to get on the same page. But this is the way to coordinate in the future.
Now, another question from the audience, and this has to do, I think, also with the crypto companies that unfortunately left the Netherlands to Panama or Portugal, for example. Do you foresee a lot of companies currently incorporated in the Netherlands leaving by setting up a DAO across the border? And how can we stop this with the current regulatory landscape and that kind of stuff?
I don't have an answer, but why do you stop them? Why should you?
Well, I mean, here in the Netherlands, they create innovation, they create jobs and that kind of stuff. So,
yeah, but you can still join them. Huh? Well, you can still be part of the DAO.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, but still, I mean, the people living here, building the DAO, running the DAO, you know, generating money for the economy. So I can also see, in the end, you know, if we have more of these companies leaving the Netherlands because the regulatory landscape is not really, you know, in favor of their work, it's a bad situation. What we saw with I think a unicorn actually left the Netherlands, right? Deribit, a crypto company. So don't want this to happen again. So,
but did all the employees also leave? Like, this is an interesting question, or was it only the legal entity?
No, they left. They all live in Panama now.
Yeah. Well, this is an interesting question, whether it be like the physical or the virtual coordination of stuff. And for example, the Bear DAO, yeah, we are also like exploring the idea of, okay, does it have to be a legal entity? Well, Olivier is definitely going to advise that yes, it is. But if that means, because in the Netherlands there's no clarity, we need to move to Wyoming, for example. Well, that doesn't give us the need to also move to Wyoming. It's only the legal entity. And about stopping organizations going abroad, yeah, I think it's also a question for the government in the Netherlands. Do you embrace this digital borderless economy, or do you want to fight it and like go behind the dikes? So that's also an option. It's all about what we make of it in the coming 5 years, I would say.
But again, I do want to challenge the fact, if we make it extremely difficult at this moment in the Netherlands, I don't know if we make it more difficult than other countries at the moment. There are a few countries that facilitate in a specific DAO regulatory or legal framework. But in a lot of cases, except for Wyoming, they're also in very exotic areas in the world, which will probably not help you in a lot of other things in the long term as well. So maybe you should go the extra mile, try to set it up in the Netherlands and actually work together also, regulators here, in order to set it up. And then you open up the road for other parts to do so. And do bear in mind the fact that you choose a regulatory area is not necessarily a bad thing. What for some reason is in the head of a lot of people who found these projects, but the fact that you are present in a certain country and regulated in a certain country and pay taxes in a certain country also means that these countries actually are going to protect you in case another country comes by and say, hey, you're going to fall under our regulation. Because it's very simple. If you don't choose a jurisdiction, the jurisdiction is going to choose you. And I don't know if you want to be on a steering wheel, yes or no, in the end.
Now, Olivier, I had great pleasure reading your articles that you published. And when speaking of mistakes, I think with a beer DAO, you know, maybe the beer tastes a little bit more sour, or I don't know what's going to happen then. But when we speak of mistakes made by DAOs, what are like the biggest mistakes made by DAOs?
I think one of the biggest mistakes out there is thinking that everybody wants to participate in every decision out there. And that is the dream of every DAO when they start. They say, we're going to set up a DAO and everybody's going to join in all the decisions that we make in a DAO. But in the end, a lot of people don't give a flying F about every single decision in the company. So you have to make sure that from an operational standpoint, etc. Also, for a long time, a lot of people thought we are a DAO, we don't have any presence in any country, so they cannot harm us. Well, they'll try to harm you if you do something wrong there as well. And one of the elements is, yes, you want to make sure that the community can come up with all different proposals for decisions in a DAO as a whole, but you do want to have a certain group of people who actually filter the proposals to make sure that something is that something isn't proposed that will bring the whole DAO into problems. For example, if redirect all our funds to North Korea, basically all the token holders of that DAO have some filter.
Right, gentlemen, we're going to close.
Do you want to hear some solutions to those problems?
Please,
or
please.
do we leave the people with...
No, please.
Just problems, okay. That's yeah, just some to add some solutions to it. The way of deciding, and not the voter turnout. And I'm building a platform, and we have we offer each community, each DAO, a constitution. They can set their own rules by which they want to decide. When you want to have a Putin DAO, somebody, yeah, okay, it's up to you. But when you want to make it more more democratic, or you can distinct the different proposal types. Money transfers below X tokens or above. So that's one solution, perhaps. Another thing, the curation of proposals. You can ask even other DAOs to curate and give a kind of certificate about the proposal. But there are a lot of decentralized solutions to those problems.
Wonderful. Now we're going to close down this conversation. But before you're leaving, I'm really curious to learn from your side what is next for DAOs. I mean, we just heard that there are just a few hundred active DAOs nowadays. What will cause this next quantum push? You know, like the big next step within the DAO developments. Peter.
Yeah, well, I think it's going in the direction of hyperstructures. More DAOs, separate DAOs, are going to work together because I'm foreseeing a future with small entities of really focused, passionate people around a subject, a mission. But in the end, to achieve greater things, you need each other. So a network, a swarm of companies working together to achieve something bigger. And that what's bigger is also a hyperstructure. So you are a hyperstructure as producers, you're producing, like say GitHub once started, but you see more and more add-ons. Nobody says, well, you can't make those add-ons, they're just happening. So you're working together in a swarm-like way, and you're making something which is growing, growing, and growing without any command and control from above. That's the way I think it will go.
Maarten?
Yeah, so I think it's building. That's an important one for the next few years. And part of that is tooling. What I really like to see, actually also for the last 2 or 3 years, there are a lot of new tools to vote, to coordinate those votes, to govern treasuries. And by slowly using those and understanding in that process how stuff work, not only technically, but also socially, I think for the next 2 years, it's going to be a great challenge for the whole field. And I'm totally sure that within 2 years, there's going to be a great flow of new DAOs that do implement stuff better than the last hype did. And I'm very curious about it.
Olivier.
Yeah, I concur with a lot of points already said there, and I think especially where you emphasize on the tooling, or even more further, the user experience of using this tooling is going to be very important, because right now everybody who's in the blockchain-based industry in all its facet or assets, etc., We think it's easy, but if you go to an outsider, say, hey, the only thing you have to do is install a MetaMask and then get your first token in and start transferring this, and then maybe you can do a vote for this DAO, and then for this DAO I need another token. So I need to import this token in order to do so. It's way too much work. So we have to work on the simplicity of entering it here, and that will help as well in combination with, and that's what we see in this tooling as well, that we get more variety and easy to use governance tooling for various DAOs. So the governance setup actually matches the business objective DAO as a whole.
Yeah. Yeah, there's already platforms like Aragorn.
Aragon. There are about 30 of those platforms.
Couple clicks where you can make your own DAO. So, but, gentlemen, many thanks for this conversation. And for those of you who are interested to learn more about DAOs, at our website, dutchblockchainweek.com, you can find more information about events that will take place tomorrow. You're organizing multiple events throughout the year. So if you can't make it tomorrow, then definitely join one of the further events happening in the upcoming year. Gentlemen, thanks again.
Super.